Ukraine shows off captured Russian armoured vehicles before a city curfew in Kyiv. President Volodymyr Zelensky has banned rallies marking the country's two annual celebrations, today's National Flag Day and Independence Day on Wednesday. Ukraine fears an escalation of Russian attacks following the killing of the daughter of one of Vladimir Putin's allies in a car bombing near Moscow at the weekend.
Dear Ukrainians, especially these days when we celebrate the day of our flag and the day of our independence, if you are somewhere abroad, please remind others about Ukraine there. Be there with the Ukrainian flag and spread the truth about the crimes of the occupiers.
The death toll in Russian rocket attacks on hostel dormitories in Ukraine's second largest city of Kharkiv last week has risen to 25. The rescue operation ended on Monday with 8 bodies still unidentified. Around 40 injured are recovering in hospitals. On the military front, almost 9,000 Ukrainian soldiers have been killed since Russia launched its invasion. It's the first time Ukraine's revealed the scale of its military losses. Meanwhile, under the threat of Russian attacks and a war that stopped all football in Ukraine, a new league season starts today. All games in the 16-team league will be played in and around Kyiv and further west. If the sirens sound, players must dash to bomb shelters in the stadiums.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has met with representatives from 40 nations and the leaders of the European Union and NATO for the second summit of Crimea platform. The meeting is intended to put pressure on Russia for its annexation of Crimea in 2014. A spotlight has been shown on the peninsula in recent weeks after a series of blasts at Russian military sites.
Done in 2014.
On July 31st, a drone attack on Russia's Black Sea naval headquarters injured 5 people. A Russian ammunition depot was later hit by an explosion. An estimated 9 warplanes were reportedly destroyed at a Russian airbase. The meeting comes the day before the 6-month anniversary of the war in Ukraine. August 23rd also holds a symbolic meaning. It is Ukraine's National Flag Day, followed by Ukraine's Independence Day on the 24th.
It's been. Thank you, Mr. President. And now was great.
At a somber ceremony in Moscow, hundreds of people, roses in hand, lined up to say farewell to Daria Dugina, the assassinated daughter of Russian nationalist Alexander Dugin. She was killed when a remotely controlled device blew up her car. Her father was believed to be the target. He framed her death as part of a struggle for Russian power.
The highest price one has to pay can be redeemed only by the highest achievement, our victory. She lived for this victory. She died in the name of this victory. Our Russian victory, our truth, our Orthodox faith, our country, our state.
However, a Russian MP went further, accusing Ukraine of killing Dugina.
Both the executioners and masterminds are in Kiev, and one of the masterminds is Mr. Zelensky personally. He will inescapably face the International Tribunal. The fascist scum must be annihilated in its lair. The lair is in Kiev, and the complete denazification of Ukraine is impossible without liquidation of the criminal fascist regime of Zelensky.
Russian intelligence has blamed their counterparts in Kyiv for carrying out the killing, releasing these photos of a Ukrainian woman who allegedly followed Dugina for days and subsequently fled to Estonia. Ukraine has hit back at accusations it was involved, saying that it was in fact Moscow's secret service, the FSB, who carried it out, to keep Russians motivated to continue the war effort. Amid the shock and heartbreak for many in nationalist circles, calls are now growing to ramp up strikes against Ukraine.
Ukraine says it is the largest diplomatic event in its history. The Crimea platform is holding its second summit, bringing together around 60 countries and international organisations. The order of the day, restoring Ukraine's sovereignty over the peninsula, which was annexed by Russia in 2014. Well, with me on set now is correspondent Sasha Vakulina. Sasha, of course, these talks going on as war essentially continues to rage. What are the main points of discussion here?
Now, with almost 6 months already since the full-scale invasion of Russia into Ukraine, the main point here is for Ukraine and all the international allies of Ukraine and the organizations as well, is to join the forces and to come up with some solution, something that would help Ukraine to get Crimea back. We've heard from President Zelensky today, something that he said already in the past. It started in Crimea and it will end in Crimea. He reiterated this claim, which is very strong because since 2014 Crimea has been annexed by Russia, and saying this, he repeats and he kind of mirrors the sentiments and the morale of the Ukrainians who won't be settling up for anything, for any half peace these days, who are willing indeed to go all the way to get Donbas territories back to Ukraine and, of course, Crimea back to Ukraine. Now, since the war is on, and for this event, of course, this is a very tricky moment as well. Lots of participants are participating online, of course, but some of them are indeed in Kiev, like Polish President Andrzej Duda, who arrived to Kiev himself.
Meanwhile, we've also been hearing more warnings today from President Zelensky himself about the prospect for ramped-up Russian attacks. What can you tell us about that?
Well, it has something to do with the symbolism, as allegedly Russian authorities and Russian forces do sort of keep an eye on this symbolism. Today is Ukraine National Flag Day, and tomorrow, of course, is the Independence Day of Ukraine, which as well marks the 6th month of the full-scale war. And Ukrainians, the citizens, have been warned, please do not get together, avoid any crowded places, any mass gatherings around the day of the national flag, and then tomorrow, of course, on Wednesday for the Independence Day. They've been also asked to follow all the air raid sirens, to seek shelter, and to stay very, very careful with the possible missile attacks. And according to President Zelensky, Russia's priorities will be to target Ukraine's infrastructure and state institutions. Now, we have also heard from the U.S. State Department urging all the American citizens to leave Ukraine. And this is the warning that we have also heard, of course, right before the 24th of February. And there is another warning, signs and information about what can happen tomorrow. It's coming from different organizations, also from the United Nations. It warned that Russia and its affiliated groups could be planning these trials in Mariupol for Ukrainian prisoners of war. And here we're talking about the fact there is some footage about pro-Russian officials in the occupied territories that they're installing metal cages in a hall in Mariupol for possibly holding this trial tomorrow for the Independence Day of Ukraine, which of course would be a harsh violation of all the rules there.
Some serious warnings there. Sasha, as ever, appreciate your insights, your reporting. Thank you so much.
It's become a symbol of Ukrainian resistance, the Azovstal steel plant in Mariupol. For weeks, Ukrainian soldiers held out in the complex of tunnels beneath the plant, under siege until they were forced to surrender in mid-May. While some survivors are still in captivity, others have been released as part of a prisoner swap.
We were kicked outside, stripped naked for the so-called surge. When we were undressed and standing in the heat, we were forced to squat. And if any of the boys raised their heads, they immediately began to beat them. I felt those hits during interrogations. They hit me and wanted me to sign all kind of statements against my command.
Тиск був в першу чергу дуже сильний психологічний.
Primarily the pressure was psychological because Russia did not provide any access to contact with relatives, no contact at all with the surrounding world.
Навколишнім світом, тому
So the psychological pressure was based on the fact that no one needs you.
Ви нікому не нужны.
Many of these fighters were members of the ultra-nationalist Azov regiment, which Moscow has labelled as a terrorist organisation. Reports that Russia is preparing to show trials of captured Ukrainian prisoners of war has been condemned by Kyiv.